All right, Alejandro, so talk to me about how Jacksonville city government operates.
So Jacksonville is a form of strong mayor government. So you have a mayor who is elected by the people, who runs in the executive branch, who runs the day-to-day of the city. He's the vision guy, the strategy guy, and responsible for making sure the city is performing all of its duties and operating for all of its citizens. And then you've got 19 city council people who are the legislative branch. So there's 14 districts in Jacksonville. So because what's really interesting about Jacksonville is we have a consolidated government where the city is the county as well. So it's pretty rare to have that, but we have that here in Jacksonville, which is there's some really good, really some benefits to it, and there's some negatives as well. But so you've got 14 districts, which all elect a city council person, and there's 5 at-large city council people, which represent all of Jacksonville. So you have 19 people in that legislative branch, which are responsible for creating the laws, for approving new ordinances, for passing land development regulations, all those sort of things. So the city council people are really, really powerful. So basically, the city council, proposes a law or a bill, and then if 10 of the 19 vote to approve it, it will get passed into law as long as the mayor signs it. If the mayor doesn't like it, he can veto it, but can be overruled by a supermajority where 13 of the 19 city council people can still vote that into law. And then typically the mayor is appointing people to boards, like the independent authority boards, like the Jacksonville Transit Authority, the Jacksonville Electrical Authority, and then city council will approve those people on those boards.
The purpose of those boards is to make a recommendation again to city council for the law that they should.
No, so the purpose of those boards is they're the stakeholders, and they're the oversight for those agencies. So take GAA for example, there's 9 members on that board, which basically set high level policy decisions for the Jacksonville Electric Authority. And then you have a CEO and staff for the Electrical Authority. The board's responsible for hiring the CEO and then providing oversight to make sure the CEO is carrying out the mission of the organization as the board sees fit.
Gotcha.
That's the same thing with the Jacksonville Transit Authority, the Port Authority, all those sort of things.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And that's designated by the mayor. He sets those board.
The mayor typically, and it kind of differ by the authority, but typically the mayor nominates the person, and then city council confirms
So
their nomination to the board.
Interaction there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. You mentioned that we're a consolidated government. What's the alternative to that? And how common is it to be a consolidated government?
So it's not very common to be a consolidated government. The alternative is to where you have multiple cities in a county that all have their own mayor and city council.
Okay.
And that's how you typically see it, where, if you go to Atlanta, the city of Atlanta only has, I believe, about 600,000 people, where the metro area of Atlanta has over 6 million people. So you have, Sandy Springs, and you have all the different, I don't know what they are exactly, but you have all the different,
right there.
What? There you go.
Alpharetta.
Sure. All the different cities that have their own mayor and their own city council.
Gotcha.
Where in Jacksonville, we're the city of Jacksonville is 3/4 the size of Rhode Island. It's the entire county. So in the 1960s, what used to be different cities, so you had the city of Jacksonville, you had the city of South Jacksonville, you had the city of La Villa, and then in the late 60s, they all consolidated and formed one city government.
Is that a benefit to getting stuff done here or not?
Yeah, so it's a big benefit to streamlining processes. So for instance, for what we do, if we were in Chicago, for instance, we'd be dealing with 30 different municipalities, and they all have different land development codes. They all have different, planners that you need to get acquainted with. It's much more difficult. So we have one set of land development codes for all of Jacksonville and all of Duval County except the beaches. So the 3 beaches, Atlantic Beach, Neptune Beach, and Jacksonville Beach, have their own land development code, and own city councils, and own mayors. So they do. So it's not 100% consolidated, but it's 99% consolidated. Everything except for the beaches. So it really streamlines things for anything having to deal with the city government. It makes it much simpler. The negatives are that each neighborhood can't really make decisions for itself. So it was been a problem in Jacksonville for downtown, because in the 70s, when the population started leaving downtown, even though it's still very important to Jacksonville that we have a thriving downtown, a lot of the influence and the pull left, and all the other districts didn't care about downtown because they didn't understand those benefits. And so that actually really led to and steepened downtown's decline. Where now people are, 40 years later, people are understanding how valuable downtown is, and City Council now understands the value of downtown. The administration and the mayor understand the value of downtown, and we're back to providing incentives and investing in downtown. But it took a long time to get to that point.
Alternatively, if you had those individual constituencies, there would have been one for downtown, and it never would have let downtown.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
Gotcha.
Downtown could have made the right decisions for downtown. Mandarin would make the right decisions for Mandarin. The West Side would make the right decision for the West Side.
We talk a lot about the incentives that the DIA and that I guess City Council approves that as well, right? The incentive packages for businesses to come downtown, or is that all the DIA?
So it depends on the level of incentive. So the DIA has in their charter, the DIA has a
DIA stands for
Downtown Investment Authority. So they're the independent agency that oversees downtown. They act as the CEO, the developer of downtown, so policy director for downtown, and so they are allowed by their charter, the ordinance that created them, they're allowed to give certain incentives. So a rev grant, which is basically a tax abatement, up to 15 years and 75%. If you want a 20-year rev grant, you have to go get it approved by City Council.
Gotcha.
They have a certain amount of money in their budget every year that they can give to incentivize projects. Last year was about $2.5 million. So if you had a project that needed $2.5 million in cash incentives, you could go to them and they could have allocated that to you without going to City Council. If you had a project that needed $5 million of incentives, or $2.51 million of incentives, you would have had to go to City Council to get that approved.
So that's per project, I'm assuming, like $2.5 million per project?
No, total. That was the total budget. Yeah,
wow.
DIA definitely needs more autonomy and more money to get their job done. Right now, in my opinion, they have less autonomy and less funding than they need to do their job effectively.
What specifically has DIA been able to incentivize that has resulted in like a big shift? Like, for example, like when Amazon came and talked about the incentive package that was there, that was not DIA. Was right. No. That was City Council, I'm assuming, because you need a much bigger incentive package.
So there's the Office of Economic Development, which handles all economic development outside of the downtown core, that puts those packages together, and then the state and City Council approve those sort of economic development packages.
Like what's a
I mean, there's been a ton. I mean, there's
a pile of money is that big for DIA.
Yeah, so there is some money available, and then they've gone and they've asked City Council to approve incentives.
Gotcha.
So how it kind of works is a developer comes in, they get the DIA to approve the project, and then the DIA and the developer jointly go to City Council and say, hey, this is a good project, let's get that done. So there's been a lot,
even if it's not just the small ones.
And even just within their purview, they had the retail enhancement grant, which basically they had a pot of money that gave matching funds to people that were willing to improve their storefront facades. There's been a tremendous amount of stuff that the DIA has done incentive-wise that's been working.
And let's talk through the incentive packages in relation to the La Villa townhomes that we are proposing to build. So we're proposing that they donate a certain amount of land to us. So how does that work within DIA's purview?
So the DIA controls all the land downtown. So the DIA
can give away as much land as they want.
They can give away as much land as they want. So the DIA, their job is to request proposals or evaluate proposals, make sure that it's a good return for the city, make sure that it's the right project for the city, and then the DIA can sell or grant land to developers that they think are going to do a good job for downtown.
So put some of this in perspective for somebody who's sort of newer to Jacksonville, doesn't know the history of downtown. The incentives that we were talking about today are really spurring development and action. I mean, we were just in the DIA meeting. We were the hot topic there about the incentive package potentially for the La Villa townhomes. Like, how much incentive dollars were going to projects 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago versus today?
So historically, not much at all. And that's been Jacksonville's biggest problem, is that we didn't have the political will or knowledge or desire to invest in downtown. Well, I say that the Better Jacksonville plan put a lot of money into it. So we did, starting in 2001, I believe, with the Better Jacksonville plan, we built, the Memorial Arena, we did the courthouse, we did a whole bunch of infrastructure improvements. So it really started in the early 2000s with the Better Jacksonville plan. But those were all kind of city projects. It hasn't, what had previously been something that the city wasn't that interested in doing, was to invest in private projects. So where a developer comes and says, hey, I have this $100 million project, but to make my financial pro forma work, I need $10 million in cash, or I need a tax abatement. So they hadn't been willing to do that.
Is that just like tough to get through politically if you are known to give incentives? Is that why there've been a...
Well, I mean, the thing is, if you look across the country, that's the only way that these downtowns have been
exactly.
It's standard best practice. You look at Charlotte or Austin or Nashville, all these places that now have booming downtowns, because they did this 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they started doing this planning. And because of Jacksonville's consolidated government, it was hard to get the political, capital to invest in downtown, because you had 14 city council people that were elected to represent their district, and they had people in their district saying, "Don't invest in downtown. I don't want my tax dollars going to a private developer so he can make money. Doing something downtown. I don't care about that."
Gotcha.
And so it's been an education process of seeing what's happened in other cities and relaying that to our elected officials over the past X number of years, where we finally we have understood that for a while, and this administration in particular has been great at seeing the long game and investing in our downtown.
It's funny because you look at downtown Jacksonville, and if people come to downtown or they're driving through, maybe they're passing through Jacksonville on a trip or whatnot, you just drive through and you're like, wow, what potential we have. But it's been unrealized potential. So it's kind of shocking to me for everybody to see so clearly the potential of downtown, the river, but also the city not make those decisions that have proven to be successful over time in other parts of the country to invest. But I guess it comes down to those individual constituencies. So when the tide is rising in the favor of investment in downtown, it's going to streamline the process because we are consolidated. But when the tide's not going that way, it really sets you back, I guess.
Yeah. So it should be a good thing. And we've, downtown Jacksonville has made tremendous strides in the last 5 years, and I think the next 5 years will be really totally transformative for it. So excited.
Very cool.